Hello and welcome in section 3. Here we will be talking about solutions to recurrent neural network problems, and I will start with just getting an overview of how to build a recurrent neural network models in Keras. So the first thing that I want you to know is that in practice we use two specific types of recurrent neural networks. So instead of using the recurrent neural network name, we use those two specific types instead most of the time. So the first one is gated recurrent unit, and this is a quite popular recurrent neural network for some types of problems. It has been used for translation, all sorts of text generation, and also we have LSTM, which is quite popular, and this is long short-term memory. And actually, LSTM was invented before gated recurrent unit. Gated recurrent unit is a simpler, and those are two most commonly used recurrent neural networks. LSTM is, far more popular than GRU, but GRU has its own advantages, and in some cases, because it's actually a simpler architecture than LSTM, it might work in some use cases. And both are available as layers in Keras layers, so you can pick and choose between those two. And also they are used in a similar way. And that simply means that when you are using those layers, those type of architectures, with just one input and one output, which is the most common models, you can, just use sequential API, where you're creating a sequential container and add those layers. And then you also can work with functional API, and we've already got a lot of examples in this course when I show you how functional API works with multiple inputs and with just multiple inputs and one output. But in generally, every time you have problem when you have more than one input or more than one output, you want to use functional API. And also we'll be talking about sequence to sequence models, which are very common with translation in area. So this is where you can actually use functional API, and you have to actually use functional API. And what's the main difference between using those two types of networks? And I'm not talking about which is better, but what's the practical difference between those two. So in general, you are basically configuring them in the same way, and in complex models like sequence to sequence, the difference is that simply LSTM has two states, two kind of memory units, and GRU has just one. And this is the main difference, and because of this difference, working with LSTMs in those complex models will be a bit different than working with GRU. And because GRU has just one state, it's much simpler to actually do that. But in general, those are very similar networks to work with. So I hope that this video was useful. If you want to know more about just configuring LSTMs in Keras and also configuring GRUs in Keras, feel free to check out the additional resources that I've prepared for you.